I'll be calling you a radical. As you know, Utah's in the Rose Bowl today. I'll talk about that, but I want to get to the big story. These horrific, devastating fires in Colorado. Yeah, that's old school like me. So, the Chinook winds, unheard of? Absolutely unheard of. Devastating. Not the Chinook winds, this intensity. As 10 years ago, Kevin Blanch hypothesized when the meltdowns of Fukushima. I hypothesized. I will quote again, Lake Barrett to Leslie Stahl on 60 Minutes on day 3,112 of Fukushima. Told you what Kevin Blanch told you in the first hour of Fukushima. Well, this is like going to the moon, way bigger than that. This has never happened before. This has never happened before. Lake Barrett to Leslie Stahl on 60 Minutes. This has never happened before. This is Kevin Blanch said that day one. This energy that's being released, it took me a year and a half to convince anyone not that. And you think you could test it with radiation. You know, people are in denial about this. So I hypothesized it was going to push a heat bubble over the western United States and cause intense radical fire because it's a plasma, it's a gas. Now, John Holdren, who covered up Fukushima, calls himself a nuclear plasma physicist. It's a gas. It's a plasma. I've been on the nuclear plasma, the nuclear gas, bringing star power to Earth, Livermore, California. That's their logo. What is the sun? Oh, it radiates. We don't have a clue what it, but it can give you cancer from 93 million miles away. These three suns are pushing into the Pacific Ocean. It's going to cause storms rise up off the Pacific Ocean. That's where they come from, kiddies. Jet stream moves left to right, kiddies. Breaking news, fish swim, kiddies. Japanese current, freaking California current. But you can't be a whistleblower on YouTube anymore. I mean, so I hypothesized I was going to create a heat bubble over the western United States. I documented the Great Salt Lake heavily. Perfect levels in 2012. Right now, in 2010, 2011, I was shoveling roofs up the valley. The monastery caved in 10 years ago. Today, we were up there shoveling snow 10, 15 feet deep. We flooded here in Utah. The Great Salt Lake was at normal levels. It's this acute radical collapse, and then they want to get on it after the fact, this reactionary society. So these fires, I will quote the biologist when the fires started. I called them plutonium fires. Remember, I was there in California. I'm the first guy that started documenting. Look at these pine trees. Kids, pine trees hold gas inside their needles. Have you ever thrown one on the campfire, kiddies? That's from the sun. That's how they stay green all year. If they get too much, they die. So I'm the first guy that started reporting the pine trees were going all over in California. I started reporting that in 2013, 2014, and everybody's laughing at me. Oh, how many trees did we lose? All this acute catastrophe, this is the greatest ecological catastrophe in human history, the last decade. It's acute. We don't have to have tide pools. Well, we count dead trees. We have the data. We have the data on the salmon. Kevin Blanch, it's going to give you cancer. I go into a bone marrow transplant. God, I remember I was just praying, hoping for this day 10 years ago right now. I was in the bone marrow transplant. I was so sick. And I'm like, because I've always been afraid of the number 11. I'm like, just please, God, get me to 2012. Get me to 12. 12 is my new lucky favorite number now. I remember that morning waking up and I'm like, oh. It's not 2011 anymore. My two grandsons born that year. I've always been afraid of the number 11 intuitively. I mean, the girl that I was involved with up before that was really, God, talk about bad news. Born 11/11, I mean, that number. I went into the bone marrow transplant on 11/11/11. I remember telling my daughters, I hope I don't die in 2011. I told everybody that. And I almost did. You know, my two grandsons were born the month of Fukushima. They're a week apart. My two daughters both had childs right then. Oh, what a year, huh? So, the fires. The biologists in California, they're arguing with him. It was first reported that all the fires up there north, when they were devastating, burned whole towns down, was started by multiple arsonists. 12, 13 fires started simultaneously. I said, no, it's not arson. They didn't get on the phone and said, okay, now. This is the atmosphere so toxic it's actually burning. Static electricity off fire lines. I mean, anything, cigarette, whatever, can start it when it becomes that toxic. Later, they confirmed everything Kevin Blanch said. I will quote the biologist. Well, these fires are different, Kevin. The sequoias, 5,000-year-old trees that have survived hundreds of fires. We lost 20% of them this year. You don't think that's alarming? You don't think that's acute and radical? The tide pools collapsed, but we count every salmon. The salmon steelhead, they live in the Pacific Ocean, started collapsing. The steelhead go to sea 1 year. The Chinook didn't collapse till 2016. There's your smoking gun. Record returns 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 on all the rivers. They collapsed radically. We call those outliners in 2016, just like Kevin Blanch said. So the fires, again, they're devastating. These fires over the West End and the right, I mean, Trump said go rake up the fort. For real? For real? There's been just as many fires in Idaho as there has in California. I mean, Idaho's been devastated by fire. Utah's been devastated by fire. The whole Western United States, really. It's not forest management. It's not. You think that there was forest management 200 years ago? 300 years? You think that natives cut down trees and culled trees? Indigenous people? No. It's intense. It's this radical acute heat bubble. Now, we can chalk everything up to coincidence post-Fukushima. Let's get to the Rose Bowl. Do you know about this protest? If you protested like this today, somebody in the fans at a football game would beat you up. I remember being at a Bernie Sanders rally. That's the day my heart failed. You know, what's going on for 5 years. And the Trump rally, when I asked Trump and I made Fox News in Salt Lake, are you going to talk about Fukushima? Yeah. That's the day my heart failed. Weber State lost to Arizona in the tournament. I mean, and a guy at the Bernie Sanders rally told me to quit yelling, lower my voice. I said, at a political rally, at a political rally, well, mission accomplished, right? You can't, don't raise your voice. I mean, what the hell? Don't cheer at the game. Just tell you don't have a beer at the game. Tell you when to clap. If you don't, that protest was 1961 today. So, look it up. It's Caltech of all people. So, look it up. The Rose Bowl protest of 1961. I'm talking one of the greatest freaking activists pulled off by college students, when college students used to protest and do things. Not now. As you know, I call it the Nuclear Waste Bribes Bowl, the toilet bowl. Because Utah, people don't even know that they dump the nuclear waste all over here in Utah. They don't know Energy Solutions. Go Jazz. They don't know that. You know, this is 1961. This jacket, excuse me, 1971. My bad. This is 61. My dad bought this jacket. This is my dad's. God, what a beautiful logo the University of Utah used to have. So, these fires, my heart goes out to people in college. This is devastating. I mean, what fires? Again, the ranger in California to Kevin Blanch. These fires are different, Kevin. And I says, yeah, just like, you know, because I've been dealing with those guys for the whole decade. I mean, I walk. I literally have conversations. I'm boots on the ground. I predicted all this, which I called Fuktonium fires. Fuktonium fires, a country of deniers. Fuktonium fires, a country of, well, a media of liars. I mean, the whole heat bubble, this is an acute catastrophe. It's been radical the last decade over the last, and everything Kevin Blanch hypothesized has come true. Every word of it. First you hypothesize the knowledge, then you do the field work, then you defend it. Their answer is to kettle me, to cover up my work. You know, you can go into now, they threw Semmelweis, the germ theory guy in Vienna, in a fucking jail cell and beat him to death. Oh, this blasphemy, little visible germs can't throw through the air. Well, that's what I am. Kevin Blanch is the new Semmelweis. These fires are they've never happened in the history of freaking the world before. Not my words. California biologists. They're saying it in Colorado. I mean, these type of intense freaking... We get Chinook winds. We get fires in Colorado. Not like this. Not like this. I mean, these are freaking insane, intense. All acute post-Fukushima. So... The reason I'm rooting for the Utes and Jay Hill, the Weber State coach, got mad at me for wearing this to a rally, and I said, well, I'm rallying it because his funeral's today. And I support young athletes. That should have never happened to that young man at the University of Utah. That kid that killed him should have been locked up. He was a hardcore, radical criminal, and he was out. That was devastating, but they've rallied. And so, of course, I'm rooting for Utah, the Utes, and I'm not a fan of Whittingham's. I am. I like Kyle, but not as a coach. I mean, I think he would have been one of the greatest defensive coordinators in the history of the NFL. But I'm rooting for these guys because of the young man that was murdered and the young man that died 2 years ago, you know. I support student athletes. We are. I tried so hard and got so far. We'll see if it matters. So, you know me. Somebody says, why you fight so hard? These people don't care. What makes you think I am fighting for these people? I'm fighting for my grandkids. I'm fighting for the youth of the world. I'm fighting for the children, the unborn, and the young people, because they didn't do this. And my grandchildren. I love my grandchildren. You know, so we are. These fires are devastating, and they're acute. They've never happened